Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I've made it my goal to help you create a great life by achieving a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. And in order to do that, it's very important to practice self-honesty and to be faced with the truth. When faced with the truth, to be able to accept it and to be comfortable with it. What I'm going to present today and go over today is the WHO report on the origins of COVID-19. And why is this important? It's important because this is really epidemiology 101. What does that mean? It means that in order to trace a virus, trace a pandemic, we need to know its origins so we can effectively treat it, but also prevent it in the future. And if we're not able to confront the facts, if we're not able to be comfortable with the truth, then it's all over, folks. We don't have any control. So this article that I'm going to go over from the City Journal, it emphasizes and goes over the key points of the WHO findings, which is quite extensive, just short of 200 pages long. So let's go over this review article called An Avalanche of Misdirection. The World Health Organization's report on COVID-19's origins dances around the likely timing of the first outbreak. It's important to know the timing because then scientists can trace it backwards. As a doctor, I find it very important to help people understand and be comfortable again with the truth. So don't skirt around facts. Let's get to the truth and then we could deal with it. So what does this article say? Well, the World Health Organization released its joint report on the origins of COVID-19. This was released last week of March, which was from today, meaning last week. Historians of science will study it for decades, if for no other reason than the obvious discomfort of its 34-author team. Even before the report's publication, the origins of the virus were a matter of dispute among current and former political and public health figures. The truth and science need not be political. Me going over this and questioning the WHO findings is not political. I'm interested in the facts. I'm interested in science. I'm interested in knowing where this darn virus originated from. Are we going to find out after going over this? I don't know. Let's see. And if you like what I'm reporting, if you have comments, your own opinions, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I really would, because this is a very hot topic. It really is. And it's important. It's important to the survival of humankind, actually. That's not being overly dramatic, in my opinion. In time, these controversies will be lost to history. I hope not. Well, maybe the controversies, but the facts hopefully will not. What will remain is the truth. The original COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan occurred well before the disease rose to international awareness and lockdowns began, most likely in October of 2019. How do we know that? Well, everyone understands that the lit fuse of COVID-19 was smoldering for some time before governments confronted a blazing global epidemic. Yet the WHO, the World Health Organization, joint report inferentially rejects, then resurrects by caveat, the possibility of an October origin dozens of times. On page 47, for example, the report describes how in January of this year, 2021, Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention representative asked 233 Wuhan health institutions to survey potential early cases of COVID-19 in their records from December 2019. But when the joint team established its work plan later that month, quote, it was agreed to modify and extend the period for case searching to between October 1st and 10 of December 2019. Moments like these exemplify the tensions within the team of authors, which consisted of 17 Chinese and 17 international members. Throughout its 313 pages, I said 200, it's 313 pages, The WHO report compiles contradictory sentences and paragraphs, caveats, and conspicuous omissions. That's hard to pronounce. I'm going to do it again. You can laugh, comment below, laugh at me below. Conspicuous omissions, suggesting that its authors could reach agreement only by disclosing information selectively as part of a technocratic arm wrestling match. Now, is that the truth? Is that getting at the truth? Well, let me know what you think. And guess what? I am almost at 1,000 subscribers to my channel. You can help me out by subscribing if you like the content that I produce. If you have recommendations on what you'd like to hear more from me, subscribe. Let me know. Comment below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, we look for the truth. I look for the truth. That's all. Not political. If one side of the aisle has the truth, I don't care what side it's on. I want to know it. The data and evidence speak for themselves. Now, let's see how we can trace back the origins of this virus. First, consider the genetic sequencing of coronavirus mutants. Okay, we all have a DNA fingerprint. We have genes in our body which can identify who we are, where we came from, yada, 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 a DNA fingerprint. These viruses have a DNA fingerprint, and also from that DNA fingerprint, if a mutation occurs, it can be traced back to when that mutation was found, because you have somebody who had the virus, another person who had the virus, one person had a mutation, the other person didn't, and by determining that, we can trace it back. Also, knowing the DNA fingerprint is exactly how the vaccines were formed. The scientists were able to trace exactly the fingerprint of the spike protein on the surface of the coronavirus. That protein sequence, which is a fingerprint, can be traced back. RNA can be developed from that so that we can produce it. Produce the vaccines. So it's important to know that DNA fingerprint, and tracing it back, we could trace back the origins of the virus. With only slight uncertainty, we can quantify the rate at which SARS-CoV-2 changes, coronavirus COVID-19, and therefore calculate backward to the date, the common ancestor for all studied variants. Just like we can get to the common variant of humans through our DNA fingerprint, the virus is the same. Did it come from a bat? Did it come from the lab? Well, let's go on. On page 60 of the WHO report, the team summarizes 16 estimates in 10 published studies, mostly ranging from August 2019 to December of 2019. Oddly, the authors do not cite the most detailed phylogenetic study from the University of London, in which British and French geneticists filtered 7,666 virus genomes, meaning the DNA fingerprint of 766,000 for the 198 mutation sites, and to figure out that the clock analysis of the origins of the virus. This research team backtracked the last common ancestor for all the coronavirus variants to an early infection between October 6th and December 11th, 2019. That's much earlier than we were told. Now, why does that matter? Well, we were told what? We were told that somebody was exposed to a bat virus that had mutated, and they picked it up from the Wuhan marketplace in December of 2019. Well, the outbreak began before late November or December 2019, as we were told. In a report in The Lancet on January 24, 2020, authorized by the Chinese National Health Commission, you think they're going to tell us the truth? I have very good reason why I would doubt that, and I think you do too. And presumably approved by the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology. If anybody read the book by George Orwell, Did you ever read it? Did you ever read that book? Did you ever read that book about Big Brother? Did you ever read that book that talked about Big Brother and the ministry of truth? Well, why don't you look that up? Why don't you look up George Orwell, The Ministry of Truth, and find out what book it came from? We all know. I'm just giving you a hint to keep you amused, and let me know that that book, which was, well, 1980 something, maybe 1984, right? And look that book up and think about how the Communist Party in China controls what goes out and what comes in. Well, Wuhan clinicians identified a patient infected on December 1st, 2019, who was not connected to the Wuhan seafood market, as we were told. A subsequent news article published in the South China Morning Post, a newspaper owned by Alibaba that generally acts at arm's length from the Chinese government, identified an early patient infected on November 17th, 2019. And at least 8 additional infections in the remainder of that month. Not what we were told, folks, right? Still later, a British student teacher in Wuhan, the late Connor Reed, returned to Wales and reported his own infection, which was initially diagnosed as pneumonia on November 22nd, 2019, but was retrospectively revised to coronavirus. Since early doubling times for COVID-19 infection were between 4 and 14 days, and a handful of doubling times are required to reach widespread community transmission, several weeks of previous undetected transmission could have been required to infect patients before mid-November. Now, the doubling time is one person gets the infection and spreads it to 2 people, who spreads it to 2 people, who spreads it to 2 people. That happens in 4 to 14 days from one person to 2 people. So in order to get a community outbreak, that's going to happen within several weeks' time when it's going to be noticed. And we go on that some suggestions of early contagion have been based on evidence that may not be in the public record. This article is just mind-boggling, how it goes over and looks at the WHO study critically, as we all should do. Why should we? This is not political. This is not political. So anybody who makes this political and hides it is really, it's reprehensible in my opinion. And it's not science. It's not being comfortable with the truth. It's spinning a reality to somehow force certain ideologies and certain connections. The Chinese government was never being transparent with this. They were never being authentic. And the WHO study, which is basically, it seems like as though they're covering for the Chinese government and trying to say that this originated from the seafood market, when tracing back the genomics, the genetics of the virus do not support that. Other reports again imply more weeks of previous undetected transmission before the uncontrolled epidemic in November. From October 18th to 27th, 2019, the 7th CISM Military World Games were hosted in Wuhan, drawing about 9,000 athletes and coaches from about 100 nations and involving another 236,000 local volunteers. If coronavirus positivity were even 1/100th of 1% among the population of Wuhan at that time, hundreds of infections would have occurred. And indeed, anecdotal reports abound of widespread feverish respiratory infections among sick athletes during the games and upon return to Europe. No medical results for affected athletes are likely to become publicly available soon, but European nations that sent more athletes to the games generally experienced higher subsequent COVID-19 caseloads. The WHO joint report endorses further scrutiny of potential early spread of COVID-19 at this event. What are we covering up, folks? Really? Comment. Let me know. What do you think is cover up? Do you think that this is some type of conspiracy theory that, okay, that all these conspiracy theorists are saying, oh no, it came from that we were told it came from the seafood market. It must come from the seafood market. Oh, it couldn't come from the Wuhan lab. No, couldn't come from the new Wuhan lab. That's what we were told. So we're going to believe that. We're not going to question it. Well, I'd like to question it. Why not? Why not get at the truth? Again, epidemiology 101, knowing the origins of a virus, very important. We need to know that if we're going to prevent it in the future. Could the virus have escaped from Wuhan laboratory in the first week of October? It's possible. Well, so why not know for sure? Why not question that, right? Unattributed open source telemetry analysis acquired and published by the NBC News Verification Unit in London suggests that the Wuhan Institute for Virology experienced zero mobile phone activity at the security gate to its BioLevel 4 facility between October 7th and October 24th, 2019, and also zero vehicular traffic between October 14th and October 19th. These low activity anomalies allow for, but do not necessarily prove, the much discussed lab leak hypothesis. At least answer why there's no mobile phone activity and vehicular traffic. Answer that question. Why not answer it? Oh, just a coincidence? Yeah, that to me is a false kind of fabrication, right? Let us know. Epidemiology 101. Let us know where COVID-19 originated from. The WHO report neglects the theory for no good reason. In its 120 main pages, discussion of the lab leak hypothesis is limited to the final 2 pages and dismissed without evidentiary basis. Oh boy, this is so upsetting. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Am I being a conspiracy theorist? Am I losing my medical mind, right? Let me know. And while you're at it, subscribe to my channel. Do me a favor. Help me out. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. It would be great to do that because it enhances the reach that if you think these are valuable videos, valuable information, whether it's my meditation videos, whether it's these types of videos, whether it's what I hope to be inspiring quotes and view on life and mind, body, spirit, let me know what you think about that. And if you have any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear from you about further content that I can create. I'd love to hear from you. So examination of such hypotheses is obviously justified. I agree. In recent decades, biosafe breaches from such laboratories have in fact occurred in the US, UK, Russia, China, Singapore, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Venezuela. Equine encephalitis, H1N1 influenza. It goes on and on. Okay. Independent auditing of a level 4 biosafety facility after a nearby viral outbreak is not a conspiracy theory. It is basic due diligence in epidemiology 101. Okay? So let's get to the bottom of it. I'm just going to get to the end of this article, which is so infuriating as far as I'm concerned. And are you as outraged as I am? Let me know. I mean, we need to know. I mean, maybe it's wrong. Maybe it did come from the seafood market, but it doesn't seem science doesn't seem to support it. The WHO doesn't give any solid evidence for that, and it doesn't give any solid evidence why it didn't come from the Wuhan lab. And I'm not saying that the Chinese released it purposely, although that's also a concern that should be looked into, whether they did it purposely. Honestly, I think it was an accident that's been covered up, but that's my personal opinion. What do you think? COVID-19 is not the first new virus to threaten our lives and livelihoods, and it won't be the last. The more we understand the pattern of undetected transmission at the outset of the pandemic, the better we can prevent future outbreaks. And this is the reason why I'm doing this video. for this exact purpose. Again, epidemiology, which is the study and the statistics of the spread of disease, 101 is a basic course. This is what needs to be answered. That's all the more reason for citizens and scientists to demand that public health authorities pursue the truth, not bury it in an avalanche of misdirection, which it appears that the WHO has done. So thanks for joining me. And I'm glad that I had this opportunity to share these findings with you. Let me know what you think. Comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, wishing you to stay strong in mind, in body, and in soul, and never run away from the truth, whether it's outside of you or inside, from self-honesty. Until next time, stay strong and healthy. Bye for now.